Okay, so I think I needed to start a new stream because I'm gonna see if I can give you guys the right link for this because it seems that it's not letting me update the stream that I was on. So bear with me. Welcome. Hi guys. Whoever's here right now, I'm going to see if I can jump over to a comment section on this so I can kind of manage it. This is the first time I'm doing a live stream, so please just bear with me for a second. Oh, let's turn off the volume. I've got a laptop open so I can see you guys' questions because it's a little too far to read over there. But let me give this, I don't know why it wouldn't open the, whatever. Apparently I'm not technically savvy enough for this sort of operation. So let's get this link in for anyone who over here. Okay, there's that. And then I can take a look at the comments in this one. Great. Okay, so the way that I'm doing this today, yes, this is live. Welcome everyone. Sorry to switch windows on you, but I didn't want to keep you waiting any longer. So hi everyone. So the way this is going to work today is I have a couple of questions from people on Patreon, from people on Instagram and Facebook, and so wherever you found me in your preferred social media platform or across all of them, that's where the post-its on the wall behind me came from, just in case nobody showed up and I needed something to talk about. But yeah, so we're just going to get started. If you have questions, yes, the sunflowers are real. I just cut them earlier today, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But if you have questions, I know that the comments are probably going to start getting a little crazy. We're going to try and do this for about an hour, so feel free to come and go if you get your question answered. If you have a question you really need answered, and you're looking at this super chat window that's here on the side of your screen, probably on the right-hand side. I don't know what it looks like on mobile, but if you have one you really want answered, either you can join us on Patreon before these sorts of live broadcasts so that you can get a post-it on the wall, or you can click, there's next to your little like emoji smiley face, there's a $sign, and so you can put it as a super chat, and that will push your question to the top. So if I'm looking around at something else or talking about something else, then it'll pin it to the top so that I can see it. And so if you want to throw a few bones my way so that I can, buy cover crops for the field, then I can also help you answer your questions. But I'll try and catch, what I can as we go through. There's a few people in there moderating, but please, just be on your best behavior so you don't make them have to do too much work. But okay, that's enough of what we're doing here, and we're just gonna get started. So I'm going to look at these. I hope everyone can hear me fine. I have, turned off compressors and whatnot in the house, but we'll see how the noise goes. So I'm going to go through just some of these questions and some of your questions. No, I do not usually do live streams. This is the first one I've ever done. And I just thought it would be a really great way to interact with you guys because everything has been so delayed when I post a video and then go through the comments, usually that day and often the days after. But I wanted to do something that was in real time, especially since I just got way faster internet and am capable of doing this now. So that's what we're going to do. I had a question, since we were talking about these sunflowers, someone had sent me a question about when to harvest sunflowers, and so that's a nice quick tip here. I cut a few of the larger ones that I have, you can see it there, that are ready to harvest so that you could know, but if they look like the ones on the shelf behind me, those are not ready to harvest. Those are still in the process of developing their seeds, and you'll know that the seeds are ready for you to harvest. One, this guy went a little too far. You can already see the seeds in here and all of the little, I don't know what they're called, the little florets that are on top of each seed. They've mostly fallen off, but usually when your sunflowers get to a point like this, where the petals start to kind of shrivel back, you're not looking, hi spider, you're not looking for it to be totally brown and dry, because usually then the birds are going to get it at that point. But if the petals, start to shrivel back like this and you can kind of see the seeds forming, then those are good to go. For the smaller sunflowers, it's going to look more like this, so you might not see the seeds, but if we pull it, I'm just gonna make a mess here. If we pull these little bits of, actually this guy might not have been ready, but I grabbed ones that were. Sometimes they have to lose all their flowers on these little guys, and then you pull, I'm gonna get this all in my coffee today. You pull these guys off, and you can see, let's see if I can get a close up. Yeah, you can see there's the little ends of the seeds, just like on the other ones. So yeah, the seeds will be viable at that point. You're gonna wanna let them dry further before storing them because they will get moldy if they have any moisture. So just like lay them on a cookie sheet on top of your fridge or something somewhere. If you have a nice spot outdoors where the birds aren't gonna eat them, then do that. Or you can, from there, you know, roast them and eat them. So that was just the quick little questions on sunflowers. I'm gonna have a spider friend joining me this live stream, it seems. The sunflowers that we have right now with these guys, they were all volunteers from Deer Feed, and I have like a crazy amount of caterpillars out there right now. There's probably like 1,000 between 5 plants, so I'm gonna be working around them. I'm just letting them decide that season's over because I really want, you know, thousands of butterflies. So I think that would be really cool, and so I'm letting it ride. Let's see. What would eat the head of a giant sunflower before it's developed? Likely caterpillars. It's usually some sort of insect that is existing in your ecosystem and it's not finding food that it likes, or its food source has gone dry. And so there are, I can't remember the name of it now, but I posted it on Instagram in my stories last night, that there's a type of caterpillar that just like loves and destroys sunflowers, and I'm totally cool with that because I still get a few flowers, so there's not an issue there. Hi Sage Knows. I see like lots of names in here that I've seen before, so that's cool. Thank you guys for joining me. Let's go through some of these post-its and then I'll see if stuff goes up. No, I don't have my paper wasps anymore, Phyto Alchemist. I'm really sad about that. My dad went through all of the wasp nests that were a little too close to the house and did some spraying, so I have a few that are hiding and I've relocated some of them, and a few that I'm just like not disclosing because they're not in a pathway. But he's not as friendly about dealing with wasps and spiders landing on him, so if I don't relocate them, then a lot of times they get killed. So that was a lesson learned. I thought I could just kind of explain that it was a friendly ones, and it didn't work out. So okay, this one, will you be growing hemp soon? This was from, I think, the Instagram. I did like a question roundup and decided I'm going to answer here. So I would love to grow hemp soon. It just got legalized in Texas and I was stoked about that. As far as I know right now, the regulations are that you need to be growing it exclusively on at least 10 acres. And I don't have that level of land, and I don't have any desire to do monoculture, so we're gonna keep working on that one. I'm glad that at least they've gotten the ball rolling, gotten some legislation in place. I'd love to have it in the field as a cover crop, as a pollinator crop, as organic biomass builder. So hopefully soon. That would be really cool. I might need to, do some stomping at the Capitol and talk to them about diversified crops, but it's really high on my list because I do think that it's a brilliant plant to have around. Let's see, how do you record your voice? Well, today I'm just talking to my camera, to my phone, because the camera on that's a little bit better than my laptop. Typically, when I'm shooting a video, I have, and I should have brought it over here to show you, but I just got like this little cheapo mic on Amazon. It was like 15 bucks, and it was something that had good reviews, and it came with like multiple length cables so that I could be close or far to the camera. But it's just a little mic that I hook up on the inside of my shirt, and that usually is enough to get rid of external noises. And sometimes I have my older iPhone that I still use for my second camera shot, and I'll run the audio into that, and I'll just stick it in my pocket or have it close by so I'm not tripping on cables. So that's how I record my voice. I highly recommend if you're doing videos, and everyone who's growing and has interesting thoughts around it, I really do think that you need to be doing videos so that we have more people teaching others and inspiring them to grow. But yeah, get one of those mics. Like, this is a total bare budget production here as far as what I'm doing. I mean, I'm shooting on an iPhone 7 that is a refurb that I got back in December because my 5 just didn't get reception anymore. And I have a $15 mic, and I put about $200 worth of upgrades into a MacBook Pro from 2010 or 11. So that's my editing machine, and that's what's working right now. So don't let your equipment stop you from sharing information that the world needs. Let's see, favorite color, green, easy, next. Have you ever been to Alaska, and any growing tips for there? You know, I'd love to go to Alaska. I have not been. I have looked at people who are growing stuff there, and a lot of them are using, you know, like, the coolest stuff that I've seen is when they do the, like, sunken greenhouse, so you're working more with the temperature of the earth than, like, the outside temperature of the air. And so I would look into that if I lived in Alaska. You're probably looking at indoor growing a lot of the year, but there are a lot, I've seen, like, you know, videos and TV shows about farmers there that are making it work. So I would just do some searching because I don't, you know, grow in cold climates very often. But I'm looking at trying to grow here this winter, so maybe some stuff I share in that space might help out the Alaska growers. Thanks, I like the bookcase too. There's actually a lot of, like, nautical stuff. I moved it to redress it with plants and stuff so that it wasn't, like, totally off-brand, but it's a fun little, I don't think it'll float, but it's a fun little boat shelf for sure. What book helped you to be so organized? Am I organized, you guys? That's awesome, thank you. I don't know that there's a book that helps. I think that, actually there is. It's called Notebook. And so I'll write down, this is like, I have different pages just for different parts of my notes. So I'll have, you know, like, the list of things I need to do, books I want to read, what plants I'm looking to add, and just kind of like start making little lists here and there, and then you have them to work with and add to. I also have another notebook that I set off to the side in case I wanted to take notes because I thought I'd have time. And so it's just like something that is a numbered, like, project action notebook, I think is what it was called. It's just like, there's a couple of bucks. Yeah, it's just like a little organizer, but it's super basic, and I like lists. Like, that's the only thing that keeps me organized. I'm organized on, like, a daily basis, and then things go in the calendar for calls and video shooting and whatnot, but it is a constant, like, you know, just trying to keep the plates in the air while you're grinding. So, let's see, there's lots of questions that are, like, getting buried, but maybe somebody can super chat it, and then I'll leave into the top so I can see it, but hopefully I don't miss anything that's, like, too crazy. Let's see, are you coming to the Heirloom Expo this year? I am not. I do not have the cash to go to California at the moment, and the panel that one of my friends submitted got rejected. For probably a variety of reasons, but we were going to do, like, a roundtable panel, and it just was one of those things. They were like, nah, we're good. So no plans to go to the Heirloom Expo this year. I'm going to, oh, now I can't think of the name of it, but I want to say it's like Farfa or something like that. And so there's a farming convention that's closer. Rather than it being gardening, it is more working with, you know, farmers and people who are doing regenerative agriculture. So I'm doing that next month, and that will be, you know, my little bit of conventioning for this year, but I'm really trying to stay as local as possible, keep my footprint a little bit more down than it has been in past years, especially as I learn about just how detrimental it is to do a lot of air travel as far as for the environment. And so even though I could probably rationalize, oh, this is canceling out that, like, the work I do is canceling out that travel, if I don't have a really good reason to be somewhere other than it's just, you know, like a fun escape, then I'm trying to not make those decisions. Thank you, Curtis. I hope that you're getting, like, great information from it. I just try to share what I'm, you know, doing as far as in this space, because sometimes I think that it's weird little things that will resonate with people, you know, and so it may not be like a perfect how to do certain things. But it's like, this is what's working for me, or this is what I'm trying out, and then kind of following that as it progresses and learning how to troubleshoot, I think, is very important. So thanks for joining. Good crops for a fall harvest. And I also have something in that same space It says something that can be started in this hot weather and grows well. So for fall harvest, depending on like what your situation is as far as how hot it is and how many days until your first frost you have a lot of options, especially if you're able to find transplants. So like right now in Texas, we're looking at, I don't have the transplants at the size I need ready to go, but I'm looking at going to the nursery, you know, seeing what they have that could be revived if they have anything left. We're looking at tomatoes, peppers, maybe some more melons and squash. Melons might be a little iffy because we're getting close to the time at which we won't have enough heat for them to ripen, but it could be worth giving it a shot. And so for as far as hot weather goes, literally the only things that I found that I've been able to start are deeply subtropical. So we're talking about like Malabar spinach, which is not super delicious as far as I'm concerned, but it does grow well in heat. If you have things to transplant out that you can manage to, you know, water or give some shade, I'd recommend those. There's not a lot of seeds, unfortunately, that you can start with this much heat, unless you can really give them some shade. So yeah, I'd look at potentially, if you have a spot inside also, to start maybe some greens and some stuff for planting in the fall to move into winter. That might be your best bet right this second, honestly. And then as we get, you know, into more cooler days, then you can get more stuff started again. But otherwise, just find a shady spot and go to town. If you have, you know, more than 100 days of frost-free weather left, or close to, I think we have like 90 still or 80 still here. So you might be able to get some production, but at least you'll get to learn about that. Hi, Sage Nose, thank you. I'm so glad that you joined. I noticed that you're like always in the comments, and I love it because you ask such great questions. I feel like there's someone I'm missing. Oh, buy some seeds. I will, as a glider, and thank you so much for agreeing to help moderate, because I'm like, woo, and then there's like, I can't keep up with this, the conversation that's happening here on the side. So thank you for being here and for helping and for supporting me. I very much appreciate it. I'm still going to read all of your comments from now on in British English, but I won't do it on camera. Let's see. Offers for rubber boot sponsorship or modeling. I would love to get a rubber boot sponsor because I go through a pair about like every 3 to 6 months, but I haven't found any that I really, really love. And so most of my, I mean, like, I am a little embarrassed to say it, but like most of my rubber boots come from Walmart. The pair I wear the most, even though I just bought a new pair, but the pair I wear the most that's just like the most comfortable, they're, I took some of that like leak stop tape like you'd use for above ground pools, and like that's holding the parts where the dogs chewed them up. I haven't found anything that does better than the $20 pairs. So those are the ones I wear. But if you want to send a rubber boot sponsor my way, like I'm totally down. I'll rock those all day because that's basically my footwear and my permanent tan lines. So yes, I'm going to, anyone who wants to send seeds at some point, I'm going to set up a, what's it called? A P.O. box very soon. I know I've been saying it for forever. I finally changed my address. I'm like not great with administrative tasks, so working through those, you know, not getting as distracted by like, oh, fun plants to play with. So I'm trying to get lots of those, but when I get a P.O. box set up soon, I'll post it on probably Patreon, and then also I'm getting my website, you know, just like a little more framework, just my name, the website. So Tractor Supply boots, not a big fan actually. So there's like the injection molding, the way that they build them, there's like a strip across the toe where they've injected the rubber, and it rubs the inside, at least for me, it rubs the top of my toes, and I just can't handle it. So let's see, where am I from? I'm from Texas. I live in Texas again. I've been, I guess you guys wanted a little backstory, and then I'll get back to the gardening questions. But I lived in California for about 15 years, and I was growing there almost that entire time on a balcony. I had a backyard garden and like front patio area that was 1,000 square feet at the place after that. Then I lived on a friend's farm for a couple of years and really tried to start getting into like this farming mindset and what that would take. And now I'm at my own place. So I'm actually at my dad's house, and we're farming together. But for the sake of, you know, brevity, it's my own place. So I'm getting to call a lot of shots and make a lot of mistakes, and it's a very interesting learning process, but I'm loving every second of it. Let's get back to the questions. I will not get some Crocs. No, absolutely not. Let's see. Good book for living soil for a beginner. So, okay. So Living Soil, for those of you who don't know, or, you know, if you've watched like me talk about this and whatnot, it's basically we're looking at putting biology back into soil instead of just adding compost and amendments or thinking about it in terms as far as we're feeding our plants. We're actually feeding our soil. And so books to wrap our heads around that, there's a couple of audiobooks that I listened to that were super helpful. There was Growing a Revolution, which was a really, really fantastic book. There was also, I think it's called Dirt to Soil. I want to say it's Gabe Brown, Dirt to Soil. I have one here, The Soil Will Save Us. That's another really great book. The other ones I listened to on audiobook because I was driving back and forth across the country, but highly recommend all of those. If you're looking to start building it, look into Korean natural farming. You could look into jadam, bokashi composting. There's a lot of ways to get, basically you're looking at getting like microbes and mycorrhizal fungi and nematodes and protozoa, and really just the dynamic biodiversity in your soil, because as the microbiologists that I talk with are helping me understand, is that we're not feeding the plants. You can feed the plants, but it excludes all of the microbiology in your soil. And so what we're trying to do instead is feed the microbiology that will then help break down all of the things that we're contributing to the soil in the form of compost and organic amendments and soil drenches and whatever. And so then they'll help break that down and distribute it to the plants a little more effectively. That's kind of, you know, like the short version of that. It's a little more complex, but more just like changing our mindset, it being like A to B, us to the plants. It's, you know, really us to the microbes and the plants, and that's going to build us better soil in the long run. So, oh man, you got a lot of seeds, huh, Gabriel, man? I can't see it, can't see your name anymore, but yeah, that would be super, super cool. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get my P.O. box set up soon because I like the idea of more seeds, and I like to do some trades at some point soon. So hopefully we'll get all of that going, get that on the organized track here. Let's see. I got topsoil, then mixed some compost bags. When I transplanted the seedlings, they turned yellow. Most died. Okay, so there's a couple of things that could happen there. Basically what this comment is saying is that some of the seedlings went through some level of transplant shock, and some of them survived it and some of them didn't. I don't know, like I'm a little bit hesitant around bagged soils these days. I have been talking with a few other scientists or farmers who come from a scientist background, and they were working in labs and whatnot. And they've been letting me know lately that one of the biggest issues, especially when we're working with seedlings and bagged soil, is that there's an alarming number of bags that are testing really high for salts right now. And potentially heavy metals on some of them. So I'd say just be like, if you can get to know your source. I know it's super easy to buy bags from the big box store. It's something that I do too when I'm in a hurry and I need more soil. But especially when you're working with seedlings, like just try and find a source that is able to tell you, you know, like working with materials that may have been tested. Like if they can provide you test results, that would be great. But if not, then yeah, I mean, you're just probably gonna have to flush those soil blends a little, you know, just like get water going through them to try and like wash out some of those salts when you go to plant. And then also one of the other things that could happen there is like the soil might have just been too dry when you planted. Like that happens. So make sure that your planting mediums are close to the same amount of moisture as the plant that you're transplanting into it, and that should help you navigate some shock. Yeah, the herbicide damage too. That was something that I noticed with the truckload that I got. It was like a 2.5 ton bag, And the first one that I got from some friends, which was like maybe 100 pounds of it or so, it was totally fine, and it, you know, composted and whatnot. But I think it's the winter hay. I was talking with another hay farmer around here, and they were thinking that it's the winter hay that's coming in from other states. What they'll do is they'll use a broadleaf, like broad spectrum herbicide, so that they can spray their entire hay field. There's lots of invasive weeds, they get killed, and then they're able to harvest the hay without all of those other, you know, broadleaf plants getting in their way. But the problem then is that some of these herbicides are super persistent, and so it will actually persist through the animal digestive system into the manure, and then persist for 2 or 3 years after that on any, like, you'll grow corn and stuff in it fine because it doesn't target grasses, but when you start getting into like you know, potatoes and tomatoes and squash and beans, especially beans, you'll see herbicide damage. So definitely, like, know your sources, try and find as much information as you can, ask as many questions, and just make decisions based on, you know, what makes sense to you. So yeah, using your local materials, grass clippings and chicken manure, and if you have chickens or cows or goats or whatever, like any of the waste product from your gardens that doesn't have disease. Like I use everything in my compost piles in order to build soil, plus, you know, food scraps and whatnot from inside. So that's the direction that I think would probably be the best for all of us to go. But we all really need to be building soil. I'm going to throw a plug for a friend's company in here because they're not paying me, but I think that their platform is great. It's called Make Soil. It's makesoil.org, and I think it's .org. But they basically have an app where you can contribute to, you can either set up a compost pile and have people drop some stuff off, and then they can bring, you know, their vegetable scraps and whatnot, or you can help contribute to another one. So even if you think like, oh, I can't make enough compost, like you could totally set up a Make Soil bin, and they would come in, like you'd have other people come and like drop stuff off according to what you say is okay for that bin, and you could be cranking out a lot of soil on a regular basis. So that's another idea there. Where do you get your seeds? So I get my seeds from all over, but I'd say like probably half of the seeds that I grow are ones that I've saved over the years. I'm looking to develop some resilience in the crops that I grow, and so I want them to be more used to my environment. I was growing most of the stuff in the high desert in California, and so I have some of those seeds. I have seeds that I've saved from traveling, from produce that I really enjoyed. I have seeds that, like pepper seeds, I'll get them from some of the groups on Facebook as far as like the pepper seed sellers there. I don't tend to go to the really big catalogs unless I need something in bulk, just because I think that there's something to be said for seeking out diversity. And then I'm also working with a couple of friends who either run seed banks or they're landrace farmers or a combination thereof to grow out some of those seeds in this climate. So I kind of get them from all over, but I recommend seeking stuff out. If you have something that you love to eat or a plant that you know you're really drawn to, like seek out diversity in that space, because I'm growing, I don't know, half a dozen different kinds of beans, and some of them are producing really well and some of them aren't. And I see some growers who will like grow one plant once and then it doesn't work out, and then they just decide, okay, I can't grow that. And really sometimes it's just the variety and your location. So definitely look everywhere for seeds. Share Waste in Australia, and they have world coverage now. So there's another one for composting, you guys, is Share Waste. And we'll see, you know, where they pop up and whatnot. Let's see. Priorities in shaping the curved beds in your field. Oh, this is a good one. So when we were talking about like how I shaped the rows out there and like what was the thought process there, I actually flipped it backwards, but I didn't know that at the time. So when I first started working on it, because the field looked flat, because I hadn't done, I'm looking, it's like out this window, which is why I'm staring off in the distance, but I hadn't done the, you know, trying to figure out the topography, because it just is fairly flat and slopes downwards. And so my number one priority was to shape it based on how the sun was going to hit, so that if I was able to grow corn that was 10 feet tall, which clearly didn't happen, but you know, in my head I'm going, okay, what's the maximum height for the vegetables I'm putting in, let's make it so that they shade the space between rows and are able to kind of keep those weeds down so we don't have to mow it as often, but don't shade each other. And so I can actually draw this a little and see if this works, but looking at it, so like if this is my field, right? This is the part that I worked on this year, and so I did it like this, where the rows are kind of like a big Wi-Fi signal, and that's because the sun comes up, well right now it's coming up over here, like off to the kind of the southeast-ish, like somewhere in the east there, and then it goes like this, and it goes over to here. And so I have a couple of friends that work for JPL, and I told them stop working on whatever robot mission to Mars and satellite stuff you're doing and help me figure out this math so that I can orient these beds effectively, and they did, because it was a fun problem to solve, I guess, I don't know. But basically it is working out as far as not shading where, like shading crops where I don't want them to overlap, but looking at it now, like it's gonna all get redone this next season because I've managed to work through the direction of like the water flow and whatnot in this space. So now what's gonna happen instead, and we're gonna keep that in mind as far as the way that the sun's gonna travel across this, because this is south right there. And so if you're looking at the topography of the field, actually it's more like this, where it's like, this would be the high point and that's the neighbor's field with the cows, and then it kind of does this. And so it's almost opposite, but it's such a gentle slope that we're going to kind of try and manage more for water than for sun, because as I found this season, the sun and shading factor is not really a huge issue, and it's actually a solution in some cases, especially as the days get longer and hotter. So we're going to come back to priorities and shaping, but I'd say, you know, if light is your issue, then focus on that. But if water is your issue, as it found to be my case, like I'm going to focus on that and really sinking water into the ground more effectively by using the contours of the land versus kind of going against them. Although it was rather effective on the sides of the bed where those ones got hit first, but I found, yeah, the bed that I shaped, which there's one bed that's like that runs into the rest of these sort of, and that's my pollinator bed with all the zinnias and everything. And that one's been getting like really good infiltration because of the way the water runs. So we're gonna do that one. Let's see. Come kill that fly, yes please. I've locked all the dogs outside, and usually they try and jump up and eat it, but sometimes they bark too much and I didn't want it to interrupt everything. So it's just, you know, it's looking for some coffee and I don't feel like sharing. There was, let's see, if you could only grow one thing, what would it be? Ooh, that's a tough one, man. Plants. Is plants an answer? No, I think if I could only grow one thing and I could do it really well and I could do like just massive amounts of it, I would totally do vanilla. And I know there's one of you out there that's like, I have a plant to still send you, send me an address. I'm getting that P.O. box set up for that. But yeah, I would totally do vanilla because it's solid cash crop and it's really difficult and it would make it look like I was like magic as far as a grower, plus it's an orchid and they're beautiful, so we're gonna go with that. I know the answer should be peppers, and if it has to be something that I could grow slightly easier, it would be peppers instead of vanilla. But let's see, let's look at the chat and see. The puppies are outside. I locked them outside because they like to bark a lot and the phone's on a tripod and I didn't want them to knock stuff over. So maybe they'll join us next time, but they can get pretty, they're pretty needy as far as attention goes, so they'd be like, you know, jumping in my face. Oh, your dog tries to catch wasps, Chris. Yeah, those are called spicy sky raisins. Mine do too, and it's like not, yeah. I know if the fly lands in the coffee for long enough, then maybe I can just like, and, you know, frog it. I don't need any more puppies though, I got 6. Do I have cats? No, there are no cats here. Maybe down the road. I like having a little barn cat, but I don't know that dogs would be friends. So as far as aquaponic ponds, as far as those go, I don't have them at the moment. I do have a friend that's local that has an aquaponic company. They do like, you know, probably, I'd say like deep freezer size installations that you can put on a patio or something. And so I am considering talking with them and seeing like, hey, can we set one up for winter just so I can play with it? Because so many of you ask if I'm doing hydroponic or aquaponic, so it could be worth looking into for sure, especially when it's too cold. I don't know that I want to do like a crazy amount of tunnels and stuff out in the field yet, so we'll see how that works. Outdoor sub irrigation? No, I don't. I don't have any experience with sub irrigation other than I've seen it go into orchards. I'm a little hesitant to run piping like that. I do think that irrigation, because of the amount that it can break on a regular basis, it's a nice thing to have above ground. I like the way that like grape growers do it, where it's kind of situated along the trees, either right at the soil line or it's staked up. I just think it's nicer because you can see where the leaks are happening. You can fix anything that breaks down. I don't see a huge benefit to having it underground other than it not freezing, but the plan right now is to work on the contours and work on soil building and hope that will sink enough water in. But if I have to supplement, it really will be above ground and then bleeding the lines before frost, like hard freeze happens, so that you don't get any burst pipes. But I don't know about the burying and stuff. Do I have kids? I asked because the artwork. What artwork? Like, is there kids' artwork? No, that's just my stuff. No, that's just me. So, oh, you were looking maybe at the drawing here. Yeah, I was just demoing part of field plan stuff. But no, all the stick figure drawings and bugs pinned to wine corks and weird little experiment things are mine. So, oh, I had, you're welcome. Hi, Scott. So I had another question about how I keep things watered. Did I put it up here? It's probably up there some. Oh, there it is. How do you water and maintain moisture? And so I don't. For outdoor plants and for gardens right now, like I don't have drip irrigation set up here like I did at the previous farm, and really wanted to see. I honestly had the crazy pipe dream where it's like, if I get the soil covered with cover crops and enough crops and everything's green, it'll maintain the moisture and I won't have to water it. And it's like, yeah, no, you're in Texas and the humidity's high and transpiration goes through the roof on plants when it's hot outside here. I think they actually lose more moisture than they do when I was growing in the high desert. I don't know if that's possible technically, but it feels that way, that they get a lot droopier. And so what I do is I water in the morning, like within a few hours, 2 or 3 hours after sunrise, and then there's no watering that happens until probably 2 hours before sunset. I've been doing it weekly. I'll use one of those little sprayers that you add to your hose that you mix stuff into, and I'll do humic acid, and I'll do fish emulsion, and I'll do things to really try and support the microbial life in my soil and hopefully help support the plants in the process. And then the stuff in the woods, I've been doing watering cans, but I'm going to show you, I was playing with this on the indoor plants, and so now I have dad-saving wine bottles at work. Because as you can see, so I got a beer bottle in this guy. It's a little easier to see with the clear ones, like a Coca-Cola bottle, like glass bottles. I prefer the glass bottles. And so you just fill it up with water, and then you dig a little hole next to your plant roots, and then you just invert it into the soil very quickly. And it kind of slowly releases the water. That'll last, it takes about a day for it to drain out when it's inverted because of the vacuum that happens. I don't need any of those little like fancy plant nurse, the clay things they make to put on the bottle. Like, that's not necessary. Just dig a hole and like plug the bottle in. And so I have those kind of all over. I have some gallon and 2 gallon jugs that I've poked holes in the bottom, but I honestly like this a little better because it's infinitely reusable, and yeah, it's heavier, but I just fill the wagon up with bottles, and then I fill the bottles up with water, and then I go through the woods and I just stick them next to the plants that I'm worried about dying, like strawberries or currants or whatever. So that's a really nice, just like quick, easy way, by the way, if you're hand watering a lot of stuff or you're trying to establish plants, especially if you're using wine bottles, like that'll give you a couple of days, and so you don't have to go and run irrigation everywhere, depending on how hot it is. Like, it might only give you a day or two, but it's better than, I found that the plants seem to respond and recover better with a that slow drip versus you pouring 5 times as much water on it with a hose. So it's something to think about. Did I grow the corn? Yes. So this is the corn I grew this year. This was no irrigation. Wait, I'll pull it off so you can see it and hopefully not knock the whole shelf down. So this wasn't irrigated. This was grown purely with rainwater. And I might have sprayed it down with some supplemental like food a couple of times, but it wasn't like, it was maybe once a week outside of the times where we actually got rain. And so this is a landrace variety I got from, I want to say it's called Roughwood Seeds. I'm not sure that that's the right name. But yeah, I found them on Instagram, and one of the people who works there had posted, and it's a flower corn from Paraguay. And it's in that like 60 to 80 day range. And so I really want to try growing it because they're nice short plants. They're like 3 to 5 feet, but they're supposed to make 3 or 4 ears per plant. And it did pretty well. Half of it got eaten by the bull next door when he escaped like early in the season, and I tried to plant to catch up, but the ones that survived, like I think they did pretty well. I'm definitely looking forward to planting more of that. Apparently if you harvest it early enough, you can eat it as a sweet corn, like Swedish corn. It's definitely starchy. But it was interesting because I went to see what was left yesterday when I went out there, and those stalks have basically gone brown at this point, and the sweet corn's still trying to push, but it's really struggling. And I found some huitlacoche, which is a corn smut. It's a type of fungus that will grow on corn on one of these ears, not one of the ones hanging, but on the leftover ear. And so I think that that's really fascinating because usually you're going to find huitlacoche on, or at least as far as I know, like typically it grows on sweet corn. And so this is not like technically sweet corn, but knowing the sugar content is high enough, or something about the plant is there like that can support that fungus, like that's nice to have that secondary crop. So I think that's super exciting. So let's see. Thank you. Environmental Scientists Unite, citizen scientist here, but I'm always happy to have, you know, more scientists in the corner to kind of explain things to me and help me out where the dots don't always connect. I don't know that I'd be able to share as much information without those people in my life, so I appreciate you guys joining in on these conversations for sure. Squash stem borers. Dude, you know, I don't even know. I like lost every squash and pumpkin I have this year to stink bugs. I never really dealt with insects in California like we're dealing with in Texas, and I honestly think that might not have been a good thing, just because the lack of insects there kind of makes me nervous as far as like how the ecosystem's going to survive without those, you know, components, whereas here it's like you kind of do have to manage the insects to some extent. For the vine borers, I'm sure that there's other gardeners that might have some good suggestions in the comments, but at this point I haven't dealt with the vine borers, the stem borers. I have heard of people putting like a little collar around the base of the plant when they plant it, so they'll do like, you know, just like a toilet paper tube, or maybe they use, I don't know, something that's plastic like a milk jug neck or something, just to kind of keep them from going into the sides. I've dealt with stem borers on melons before, and honestly you can just put like a nail, like a, I don't know, like a 10-penny nail, I don't know what it'd be called, just like a nail that you'd use for construction on either side of it, and then they can't chew through it, they can't wrap all the way around, or you can just even put one next to it and they can't wrap all the way around it. So I don't know if we're talking about the same insect, but I've found good success with just putting a nail next to the seedlings. Let's see, I did say corn smut, yes. What about it? Like, that's what it's called. My worst, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so I'm not in Steam It 2. I don't know, I don't know, like, I'm still figuring out all of this, like, online live stuff and how all of this best fits in, so, ants in Texas, I do have problems with them, yeah. I don't see them really ruining anything, but I do look if I see ants to make sure they're not farming a ton of aphids on that plant. If there's one plant that sticks out versus others, I might pull it or cut it out. But yeah, I see ants and most detrivores, to be honest, as a good thing. They're helping to increase the tilth of my soil. I mean, I don't like getting a handful of fire ants any more than the next guy does, but you know, they're part of the ecosystem. There are other insects and other animals that will eat them. And so as long as, you know, that part of my garden is not getting destroyed, like don't try and build where the ants are already making a home either. Like there's places in the woods where there's ant piles. Granted, there is that one that popped up near my hops. But for the most part, if I start digging and I see ants coming out, I just go and dig somewhere else because they're already there. Like they were there first. It's like saying that the ocean's invaded with sharks, and it's like, no, that's their home. So trying to work around, and again, managing pest populations to some extent, but working around things that are already, you know, in a space. I did not have, let's see, I have not seen a monarch migration yet. One of a butterfly person, I saw your message disappear, but it's, I have not seen monarchs come through too much. We have a ton of swallowtails, and then whatever, I can't think of the name of it, whatever the caterpillar is that's on the sunflowers. I'm not sure if they're going to lay their eggs or if they're going to put their cocoons on the sunflower. And so I really am looking at, you know, redoing the field soon and getting in those fall cover crops. But I might have to wait until I see a bunch of butterflies just so I don't mess up that life cycle, because there's so many caterpillars and they're just so hungry and so happy. So how can I tell, get off of here, how can I tell when watermelons are ripe? Okay, so I got a video on this. If you look back in the archives, there's a video on melons and squash, but for watermelons, usually you're looking for the next tendril up on the vine to turn brown. And you're going to want to turn brown almost all the way back to the stem. Sometimes if you have watermelons on trellises, they'll fall off before that happens if you're not, you know, effectively supporting them on the trellis with a sling or something. But generally, if you look for like watermelons and then non-slip stem melons in general, look at the stem and then look up on the vine above it and just keep going until you see the first little curlicue. And that little curlicue needs to turn brown, and then it should be ripe. And you can also do the thumping method where you thump on the melon, and if it sounds really deep and hollow, a lot of times that means that it's closer to ripe. But those are the methods that I go with for them. You'll start to notice too, as you pick more of them, that the skin color changes, and so you will start to have like that visual cue as far as like, oh, okay, I pick it at this color for the flavor that I like, because maybe you don't like it as ripe as it's able to get, or maybe you like it a little under, a little over. And so kind of mentally cataloging as you're picking them and going, okay, I didn't like it this time, so I'm going to pick it, earlier or later. Or, okay, I really like it here, so let me take a picture so I can compare it on the next one. And so that's how I go about figuring that out. Let's see, shishito peppers, success tips. Keep them picked. Don't let the peppers get way too big, and pick off early ones, and just keep them picked, because they're going to pump out. They're going to be really, really productive if you just keep them picked. So that would be my biggest success tip for shishitos. Mine really didn't do bumper crop until later in the summer when it started getting a lot hotter. So if you have a spot, where they can stay fairly warm all day, I think that would also help. So hard to cut, I can't. There's 2 different message feeds here. Okay, we're gonna go over here. What will you never grow again? I don't know that I have anything on a never grow again list. I'm that person who has the bleeding heart for things that are considered invasive, like mint or mustard or arugula. There's probably some varieties of eggplants or some varieties of tomatoes that just the flavor's not there for me. And so yeah, I don't grow things again that don't taste good. I don't grow things again that deal with massive insect pressure or just a magnet for disease. I'm definitely moving more into plants that have a lot of resilience, that have a lot shorter seasons, as far as taking that 60 to 80 day window versus the 90 to 120 we're used to with a lot of summer crops. But I'm always looking to grow everything. So I can't really think of anything I'd never grow again, just the things that don't taste good. Like, don't keep planting them if you don't enjoy them or if you find yourself not eating them, because it's using, you know, the biology and the nutrients in your soil to produce something that you don't actually enjoy. But do compost it, because it's still going to make good compost. Favorite food to cook? I really like making soup. I don't know that that helps you in the summer because I'm not a huge gazpacho person, but soup I think is really great because it comes together quickly and it's a good way to get a lot of variety as far as, like, you know, vegetables and spices, and using very small amounts of meat. So it's not expensive. You know, you can use cuts that you wouldn't normally eat as a roast or whatever. But soup is where I started cooking. It's where I will die cooking. It's a great food, and leftovers heat well. So anything that's like quick grab and go, yeah, all about it. Ecocentric Homestead asks, mustard is invasive? Mustard can be invasive. Not all mustard is invasive. Like, if you go to California, you'll see yellow flowers all along the freeways there. And that's a type of, I want to say it's black mustard, and it is a high fire risk. So it spreads like nonstop, and the little seed heads just like blow open, so you can get like 100 plants off of one plant, which is great if it's a type of mustard you like eating, but it's not great if it's a type of mustard that's going to create a fire hazard. So yes, it can be invasive. That being said, I still grow it and I harvest the seed heads because I'm looking to use mustard as a condiment. I'm looking to use it as a spice. And so I have the greens when they're younger, but then you have this whole other component. And most of my crops, you'll notice, a lot of them are moving towards the, can I get multiple products or multiple harvests out of this crop? And so it's not just like plant one and then that's it and pull it out. Like, I'm looking to take it seed to seed. And if the seed is a harvestable crop, then I want that. If I could grow fungi on, you know, the corn that doesn't develop well, then I want that. Hey Ralph, nice of you to join us. No, thanks for stopping by. It's always great. Yeah, we have a couple of moderators in here, and I'm always down for anyone else who wants to volunteer that I see popping up. I may be adding you in the future just to kind of help me keep the space friendly. And thanks anyone who's asking questions in here and helping each other, because they fly by so quickly, and I'm like trying to come up with thoughts. So I'm really glad that you guys are, you know, helping each other out in here. That's fantastic. What is this about caterpillars and birds? Nah, see, this is why, like, that's the only thing about live is I don't get to be, like, on the comments. Yeah, definitely rely on your mustard, arugula. There's certain things that, even lettuces, it's like, I let tons of stuff go to seed in any garden that I'm in, with the hopes that if I leave it, then it will still provide food to someone or something else. So I'm a big fan, but it is about choosing varieties that are not going to create problems for your ecosystem long term. So you don't want something that's going to get like crazy invasive and knock everything else out. Let's see. Oh no, I lost that one. It said, have you visited Australia? And if you have, is there a plant you want to grow? I have not visited Australia. It's been on the list for a while, but I don't know that I'm going to make it there at any point soon. But if I were able to grow a plant from Australia, I would undoubtedly do just like an entire border of manuka, and then I would get bees, and then I would see if I could have them make honey that is as potent as the stuff that we're able to get from, well, I guess that's New Zealand, huh? Or they grow in Australia too. I'm not sure. But that was like my first thought. I was like, I want to grow manuka. But yeah, like there's, I think, some really great native plants in Australia that are very drought tolerant. And I only wish that, you know, I think that the eucalyptus issue that we had in California, with that becoming invasive, kind of stopped the trade of a lot of plants that could be better suited for certain areas. But I'm sure that there's stuff that I don't even know about that sounds awesome there. I've seen on Instagram there's tons of gardeners in Australia, and they all have fantastic looking gardens, and I know they're chomping at the bit for springtime right now. So we're going to be switching spots soon, and I'm going to be staring at their pages instead. Where are you guys eyeing my pineapple plant here in the background? Let's see. Oh yeah, you're right. Lots of people writing, so it's overlapping. Yeah, the feed, there's a delay on the computer feed versus the phone feed that's shooting the video, because I don't know what the resolution is on my laptop, but it wasn't, I looked at them side by side and I'm like, let's do it on the phone, but then try and keep up with comments over here and see what your delay is too. So I'm like live, but then live with you guys. I didn't know. I saw something about pineapples. If you guys are looking at my top, my pineapple top, he's got roots now. This one was done in, I started it in willow water, which is why the glass is still a little brown. I didn't scrub it super well, but I just gave it fresh water the other day because I saw the roots coming out. So it's always a fun little project. I've never had a pineapple actually produced, but I like the plant. So that one started there. I also have I pulled the bag off because I thought it looked dumb in the background. But I also have the pepper cutting that I did the other day for the video that we live chatted about yesterday. And I actually see some little leaves poking out on it. I don't know that you can see. The big leaves fell off. They got sad because it didn't have a baggie. So now it has a baggie that goes over it most of the time, except for right now. And I see little leaves coming out, and I don't want to move. I've been trying to see like if I can see any nodes developing on the stem, but I don't want to wiggle it too much and break them. So that's going to hang out for a few more days, and then I might slice it open and look inside and see if there's any development. I'm not entirely sure I got enough leaf nodes on the inside of the aloe for it to grow roots from, but we'll give it a look in a few days, and I'll post it on Instagram if there's roots and be excited about it. Thank you, Ralph, for keeping people on the information side of things. He's very good at, if you have any questions about how to use chat, he's very good at adding a lot of information there as far as how to engage with each other, engage with me. Sweet corn fell over. So yeah, if you have corn falling over, so corn has really shallow roots, or at least in my experience it has a shallow root system. If you're in a high wind area, corn does have a tendency to fall over. I wouldn't stake anything that can't, if things can stand up by themselves, and leave them. If they can't, like, you can try staking it. Another thing that you can do is earlier in the season start mulching down that root zone a little bit better to make sure that they're able to like kind of sink in a little bit more into your soil, because what happens, at least what I've noticed, what happens is the soil starts to dry out, and then the roots are just kind of spreading out, you know, like rhizome out, but not down, and so they don't always get a good base. Another thing you can do is grow this kind of corn. So if you grow something that is like, I'm just obsessed with this purple, look at this. That's the same variety, by the way. Like, this is what happens when you're working with landrace seeds, is you will get such variety and like such diversity in the same crop. I just love it. But you can grow a variety like that only grows 3 or 4 or 5 feet tall and isn't 10 feet tall, and that will also help prevent things blowing over just because it's shorter. So, but yeah, stake it if you have to, if it's being productive. Like, I don't think, you know, I think in a lot of cornfields you don't have that issue except on the borders because it's so dense. But yeah, in our gardens, corn falls over. So, yeah. Let's see. Playing around with pruning, trying to root bush beans. Cool. Yeah, someone was talking about pruning bush beans the way I was pruning peppers the other day for a bumper crop in the comments, and I think that that's really fascinating because I have some bush beans out in the field that are struggling, and I don't think it would hurt to prune them, so I'm going to give that a shot. One of the things I don't think I mentioned in the video too is that the pruning for a bumper crop, or the ratooning, it works on eggplants, it works on okra. I could see it working on tomatillos, although most of us are just starting to get production on those. So definitely play around with pruning any plants that have already given you a harvest and you're thinking about replacing, just to see if you can't push a little more out of them, like learn how they're growing, you know, like learn a little more about them, because if you're about to pull it out, does it really matter if you're going to kill it anyway? You know, experimenting with it and seeing if there's something that you can learn from it in that space. Earwigs and sweet corn. Dude, no, I don't have any advice for that, unfortunately. I'm sorry. That was a big issue I had in California. One of the things I did notice with the earwigs and with the pill bugs was when I set up, and I have a video on this, but when I set up my stroparia bed to grow mushrooms kind of in that shaded patch in the garden, a lot of the detrivores moved to that space. And I don't really have a good way to explain why that happened yet, but I do think that they were able to find the food and the moisture they were looking for in the mushroom patch versus in my crops. So I would definitely look at, like, see what's eating what you're growing, and then see if you can't find a way to provide it a home, and you know, another place to eat that's not your crops. So yeah, bat house could potentially help with some insects, but really I look at insects as insects that are eating our crops are doing it because they're not finding the support they need within the ecosystem, and so they're going to you know, do what they can to survive, just like any other organism would, just like we would if we didn't have food and we didn't have water. Like, we're going to go and look for it somewhere else. So you know, kind of honoring that and trying to consider, you know, what I add into the native landscape in addition to what crops I'm growing for myself that will help better support their life cycles without losing everything I'm growing in the process, with the exception of stink bugs, because like yeah, we're gonna do like lots of trapping and killing them next year for sure. I will never spray anything to get rid of an insect because it doesn't make sense. The predator reproductive cycle is so much longer and so much, like, it's more days and it's a smaller amount of spawn than most of our pests. And most pests reproduce very quickly, and they reproduce in like volume. And so when we throw that off balance too much, when we're trying to get rid of the pests, we're also killing our predators. We throw that off balance too much, and then it gets even worse. So I'll never spray anything to get rid of an insect, with the exception of maybe like some ants and stuff inside of the house. But outside, no. Like, we need to figure out what these guys are looking for and how we can support them. All right, you guys, if you want to keep sticking around, I'll keep going for a little bit longer. So if you Post-its on the board behind me, I know it's been an hour if you need to head out, but oh, this was, okay, so this is from Instagram. These sassy questions here. Why do you leave the farm for more than a day during the season? That's a very good question. So I do it for my sanity. I'll take, I don't know if you guys who follow on like other platforms have noticed, but I'll take 2 or 3 days off farm to go and visit other farms and see friends and maybe do classes and clear my head a little. I tried to set this up so that I wasn't micromanaging all of the plants constantly, and I really wanted to see, at least with this season, what my soil was able to support. And it's very difficult for me to be hands-off, so taking a few days away was a good way for me to be hands-off. It's worked out pretty well. I haven't lost anything severe. My struggling melons did finally die, but I'm not sure that I would have been able to save them had I been here. They were struggling regardless. So most things, though, are able to survive and bounce back even if I haven't been here to water for upwards of like 4 days. I've been able to, you know, kind of get them going again. So I'm pretty happy with the way that it's worked this year. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it as much next season, but I'm hoping, like, my ultimate goal is to not have to check in constantly on plants because the biology is there, because the water is in the soil, and because I'm choosing the right varieties. So, I'm like, which comments do I look at? I don't know. You guys super chat it, and then I'll see one pop up because I'm struggling with that. Oh, what kind of sumac do you have growing? Oh, I didn't bring it over here. I wanted to show you. So I found out that the type of sumac that I'm growing is smooth sumac. I'm not growing it. The wild is growing it. But it's finally at an age where it's put on berries. And so if you know sumac, if you don't know sumac, this is not poison sumac. This is, it's edible sumac. And it's like licking a battery. There's a very like bright kind of citric acid flavor to it. And you grind it and use it for spice powders. So like you could make sumac aid, like lemonade from it, but also I like to harvest the berries when they're ripe because I'm putting together a za'atar blend and I need sumac for that. So it's a really nice seasoning to have around to kind of get that acidic foil when you're looking to just like punch up whatever you're cooking, especially on roasted stuff, like roasted veggies and stuff like that. Oh, it's so good. And then you don't need lemons and limes. So So, the first hot pepper you ever ate that was not a jalapeno. I distinctly remember, although my dad will deny it, but I distinctly remember him giving my brother and I want to say they were Reapers. We were like 6 and 7, and we decided it wouldn't be that hot, and we were wrong. So that may have been the first one that I ever ate that wasn't a jalapeno. But we grew up eating spicy food, lots of Mexican food, and lots of Tex-Mex, and we've just always, like, hot peppers have always been part of our diet. The first hot pepper I ever grew that I can remember that wasn't part of the salsa garden for my dad, but like on my own, was probably the lemon drop, the ají, and that was really like the game changer for me, where it's like, oh, peppers can have immense flavor. It's not just about it being hot or sweet. There's also, you know, there's a citrus note, and there's like bright notes, and there's earthy and smoky, and so I went down the rabbit hole then, and now I don't even know how many varieties I grow. Not as many as I'd like to, but definitely not as many super hots these days as I used to, just because they don't get used that much. So, let's see. Yeah, look at all of these hot pepper stories. You guys are crazy. Have you considered growing ramps? Yes, I have considered growing ramps. For anyone out there who does not know what a ramp is, it is a wild allium that's kind of somewhere between garlic and onion, leeks, like in that same sort of flavor family. They are actually at this point, I don't think they're endangered species, but they're definitely on like a protected responsible harvesting list. They take about 7 years to grow a bulb from seed, and so they got really hot a couple of years ago. Well, it's probably been like 10 years now, but on the culinary scene where chefs wanted them and diners loved them, and they were pulling whole bulbs by, you know, the hundreds of pounds in woodlands across the Northeast and the Midwest. And we started noticing the populations were just like completely dying back because they were raising the entire forest in order to get these bulbs. So now, because of that, we have to pick leaves. We just take like the greens off, or take like 1 or 2 green off of each, and make sure there's enough, you know, there so that it can keep growing. But one of the ways around that is by growing your own patch. So, long story short, or long, this year I'm growing true gray shallots as well as garlic in a perennial format to see if my woodland can support an allium without, you know, wasting ramp bulbs to experiment with that, because they're fairly rare at this point. And then if I find that it can support a perennial allium like that, because we have a wild garlic and wild onions already, then I may get a foraging friend to help me find some ramp bulbs, or maybe order them from, I can't think of the name of the catalog. But there's a catalog that does wild plants, and I think it's Prairie Moon. Yeah, Prairie Moon Nursery. I might order some from them. I know that they sell seeds, but I think they also sell bulblets. So that is in the cards. Basically anything that's could be a perennial vegetable, could be grown in woodlands or in a mixed like edge space, is being considered for this space. I've had people ask me about what books, and so I wanted to show you just a few of the ones that I really like. This was one I got right before I moved. It's called Farming the Woods. I think it's a really great book, especially if you live in the Northeast, but there's stuff that can be adapted all over. It's a really great book that just kind of tells you about various crops that can be grown and how they function together. There's tons of resources out there if you're looking to grow in woodlands. You know, just getting the right Google search terms is a great place to start. If you're looking into silvopasture, that's S-I-L-V-O pasture. That would be, you know, using mixed crop trees and maybe even timber trees in a field setting to feed livestock. There's agroforestry is another great term to use when you're searching. There's agroecology that also fits into that, but if you're not looking at enough trees or like tons of trees. So yeah, look into those sorts of resources, but I recommend Farming the Woods, if for nothing else. It has beautiful pictures and you get to daydream about you know, all of the different things you can grow. I'm like, let me find a good picture, and I'm just flipping through. But yeah, there's just like, it does some breakdown too, as far as like, you know, your medicinal plants and where they're found, and so it's good. Another book that I recommend is, well, this is for our area, but going to your, what is it, your NRCS office and finding a book, seeing if they have a book like this. So our NRCS office has this range plants of North Central Texas. Maybe where you live has one as well. This is how I'm identifying all of my weeds, you guys. So this is, you know, like everything from the varieties of milkweeds that we have. There's different like mallows, there's different, all of the post-its here are the things that I've identified. They're out there in the field and the forest so far. It will give you, as far as like, if it's good for livestock, if it's something that, you know, should be left in that space, or what sorts of organisms it supports. So highly recommend, even if it's just a guidebook for wildflowers or for insects or for birds, like start learning about your ecosystem, because it's going to change the way that you perceive your garden, and it's going to ultimately help you support that space. So, hi Tour Dog. You're starting a food forest on a new property. Ground is very fertile and has shallow water table, 75% sun index. How do you start laying out the base foliage? So if you have soil that has nothing, like you don't have any trees or anything there, then I would start by looking, because the water table is shallow, I would start by looking and seeing, just like in your area, what pioneer plants are you noticing on the edge of woodlands? Like what sort of wild plants? Again, that's where something like having a native plants book for your area, specifically for your area, will come in handy, because one of the things that I'm doing in order to start working on this field as a food forest space and incorporating trees is really looking at what are these plants that are coming in. It's called the edge effect, and it's like the edge zone where the field meets the forest, or where, you know, water meets land. And so you're looking at the plants growing in that space, because those are your pioneers that are going to encroach on the open spaces. Because if we weren't here, like if humans weren't here tilling and plowing and mowing stuff down, like the forest would start encroaching on itself again and covering, with some exceptions for some meadows, but like it would start covering a lot of those spaces. And so I definitely look at figuring out what your pioneer plants are as far as native ones. Another thing you can do is plant nitrogen fixing trees, just because, although you said it's very fertile, so that might not be as necessary. The shallow water table is going to be an issue, and so I'd say that the quicker that you can start getting trees in that are going to have deep root systems to help bring some of that water to the surface and provide it for, like, share it with the other plants around them, then the better that shallow water table is not going to be as much of an issue. I'd like to know if you have access to irrigation or whatnot, because like that does change everything as far as how you're setting it up. But yeah, the base foliage, I would look at natives. I'd look at maybe not anything that's like too much of an understory plant initially, but definitely those, like Google pioneer plants plus your area, or find a native plant book, or just go for a walk on the edge of some woodlands nearby and see what plants are encroaching and starting to set up shop. Because one of the things I've noticed in not mowing this field is that we have, now when I'm going to cut Johnson grass and some of the other native grasses for the chicken coop, because I'm using that for the base layer instead of buying hay, I've noticed that some of these grasses are actually protecting, you know, small oak trees and small cedar elm trees. And so there's a lot of stuff that's going on that I want to happen without me actually doing it, and like doing anything for it. So, you know, just kind of stepping back. I don't know either, like if your property is surrounded by something, or like is it a fence? Like there's lots of questions there. But if you want to jump onto Patreon, it is something that we can definitely chat some more about if this wasn't like enough ideas there. It's just Patreon/Veronica Flores. I have, you know, everything starting from $2 and going up, and I'm basically opening it up to just chat with people about whatever their gardening issues are for the rest of July, and then, you know, we'll worry about access points as it grows. But right now I just want to be helpful. So if that wasn't helpful, or if it was only slightly helpful, then we can chat some more about it. Like, feel free to go. It's Veronica Flores, so it's patreon.com/Veronica Flores. Thank you, Food First Permaculture. Some humor. I think that we're all pretty humorous around here. Oh man, something just jumped here. Thank you guys so much for joining. Like, it's just, I was really nervous that no one was going to show up, so I'm glad you guys are here. Yeah, please do speak a little more about it, because I think that talking through these things, and then also just like bouncing ideas off of each other and whatnot. Ralph, why do cucumbers start to yellow? Cucumbers start to yellow because they're getting too big, usually, or they're not getting enough water. So cucumbers will definitely be a good water indicator in your garden, as far as if you have, if you're not evenly watering, then sometimes they'll just, you'll see it on them first before anything else. Another thing is tomatoes. You'll get blossom end rot on your tomatoes. If your watering regimen does not work with the plant, or if it's not consistent. I've noticed it a lot. Sometimes it's variety too. So like I notice a lot on my San Marzanos. They just are more finicky in the soil. But yeah, a lot of things come down to, okay, if you don't have like a regimented watering schedule that the plant is happy with, or if you're constantly having to revive it from the brink of death, then you're going to see more of these issues, because it's going to be struggling harder. Thank you for including that link, Laser Glider. Started yellow and then they turned half green. So yeah, sometimes that happens with cucumbers too, and there is definitely something to be said both about watering, like Jagun 1. I don't know how to pronounce screen names sometimes, but like you said, humic acid can help to support that plant through stressful parts of the season. It is it's something that you find in compost. So like if you were to run water through really great compost, you're able to collect humic acid from the bottom, but you can also buy it, in a container or in granulated form at the nursery, but you don't have to buy it in order to have it. Keep in mind it is an acid, so you do need to make sure that you dial it down, dilute it is what I'm trying to say, and it may, buffer the pH of your soil. So if you have a very acidic soil, you might want to be adding compost as a top dressing versus pouring humic acid into the soil, like exclusively. And don't do foliar sprays with it, because it could potentially burn your plants. But I'm old. You're old. No, I am. I'm you don't ask a lady your age. No, I'm how old am I now? I want to say 34. So I know a lot of people think I'm younger, and I'm younger in spirit. But yeah, I guess old enough to know better and still too young to care, however that country song goes. Thank you, Tour Dog. It'll be good to see you over there at Patreon, and we can chat a lot more about whatever questions you have. That's just stuff I like talking through and troubleshooting, and I would do it more one-on-one with people if I could, as far as, oh, but I have good internet now, so maybe we can make it like more focused Skype sort of things and whatnot. Let's see. Do I take care of the bees? We should plant more wildflowers. Yes, I take care of the bees, and when people say the bees, I think they're usually talking about honeybees. I'm actually more focused on wasps, because I think that they're very maligned insects. They do a better job of pollinating. They're not collecting it to take back to the hive. Like, they're usually just brushing against it as they're collecting nectar. And yeah, so I plant tons and tons and tons of flowers for the bees. Like, that is probably the #1 priority in addition to crops for me. So thanks for joining Food Forest Permaculture. I'm so glad that you were able to make it for this long. And yeah, we'll wrap this up here very soon, because it's been almost, we're getting close to 90 minutes. So but I definitely want to do this again soon. Let's see what's left up here. Recommended ecology, agroecology books. We kind of hit that. How did you come to the field and develop skills? So I decided I've been growing plants and like growing vegetables and fruit basically my whole life. I started when I was 4 or 5 in my dad's garden, our family garden, and helped manage, salsa production and whatnot growing up. And then there was something missing when I went to college, and I had like house plants, but the minute I was able to have a balcony with vegetables again, I went, oh, this is it. And so then kind of scaled up to a backyard garden, and then developed a lot of skills there, because I went, okay, well, I can do this the way I want to do it. how do I do it better than just adding, you know, synthetic nitrogen fertilizer and bagged soil. And it just became a rabbit hole where I started realizing that the more I cared for my soil, the better the stuff I grew tasted, and that it didn't taste like anything I could get at the store. And this was also a point at which all the farmers in Los Angeles, you know, 10 years ago, they weren't growing the variety of crops they are now. And so I was growing things I couldn't find at the farmer's market because I was thinking, okay, as a cook, if you want the best produce, like, your cooking is only as good as your ingredients. And so you go to the farmer's market and you find the best ingredients. Well, if they don't have it and you're cooking, you know, global foods and playing with different recipes, well, then you got to grow those things. And then if you can't grow it, you forage it. And, like, you keep going down this kind of pathway there. But that's how I came into the field. At some point, more than 5 years ago now, I decided that, or I guess I had the realization, it wasn't really a decision, I was like, I want to farm, I need to be a farmer, and from there, it's been doing a lot of research, it's been putting a lot of things into practice, it's been failing a lot, and making sure that you're failing forwards, and that you're learning from those mistakes very quickly. So, if you're looking to get into the field, one, if you're young, and you're like in high school, trying to figure out what you're studying in college, definitely look into studying, you know, microbiology, organic chemistry, maybe something in like a combined space there, because we need a lot more bright minds that are helping solve those problems, especially in microbiology. I think that we're going to see a lot more connection between the human microbiome and the soil microbiome in the coming months/years. And if you're looking to be like on the academic side, I really think that that's the space to go into. If you're coming about it like I have, where it's just kind of this fumbling through life into the space, just try things out. You know, that's what this channel is all about, right? Is we experiment and we learn together, and not everything works perfectly, but yeah, like, we're doing the best we can and growing delicious food in the process, and if you don't kill something, then you're not taking enough risks. So, like, definitely, you know, if you're killing some stuff, but you're learning from it and you're keeping other stuff alive, you're on the right track. Yeah, so I did work as a chef for a couple of years. I'd say I was a cook. I wasn't like a trained chef. I never learned how to cook, and I grew up in a restaurant, which did not help me learn how to cook because people would just feed me. And so I could order what I wanted and it would show up at the table. And it wasn't until college where I realized that I lived in like this food bubble, and most people ate things that were not, I didn't consider to be edible. So it was like boxed and bagged and canned food. And a lot of friends would add seasonings to them, but it wasn't like, it wasn't something that was anything that I enjoyed. And so I was like 19, probably 18, 19, and I was like, okay, I need to learn how to cook. And I fumbled through that for a good decade, and got to a point where that was what I was sharing online. So on, you know, Facebook and Instagram, initially it was a lot of cooking, and it was a lot of backyard to kitchen, and figuring out, you know, what do I do with the stuff I'm growing besides make salads. And when I quit my job, because I was working a corporate job at the time at Disney, and so when I quit that job, then I had people ask if I wanted to come and cook, and I didn't have any plans as far as how I was going to farm. So I did. I went and cooked for a little while and did some travel. Feel very fortunate for that opportunity. Ultimately, I don't want to be a chef, and I do want to farm, but I like being able to translate ingredients from farm to table in a way that makes sense to just a general person growing at home. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone who's joined. We're going to save that question right there for next time if there's no one else that has anything that's like, yeah, professional fumbler, exactly. So if there's no one else that has anything that's like, you know, like burning questions, and of course you can always add them to the videos that are up there. Definitely, if you're just discovering me on here, just joining, like, hit that subscribe button, like, make sure that it says get notifications so that these live streams and whatnot pop up for you. I'm going to try and figure out why the other live stream didn't work so that we can all be at the same link that's planned. And yeah, like, look back at some of the videos I have in archives from the old farm. There's a lot of good little bits of information in there. If you've one of the people with questions about melons or squash or tomatoes or whatever, there's a lot of little bits of stuff there. So feel free to, you know, kind of thumb back through the stuff prior to the Texas stuff. We're going to do more of these Q&As for sure. I definitely really enjoyed chatting with you guys, and I hope that you can manage to stay cool. It's really hot outside right now, so I think I will be making a late lunch here and just staying cool until the sun goes down a little more. But thank you for joining, guys, and happy gardening, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye. If I can figure out how to turn it off. Ah! Oh, there it is. Bye!